people. Installment 2 of polishing. I finished shouldn't be leaning on the fender since I finished the fenders, finished the front bumper, and finished the hood, which you saw me working on last time. So we did 2-step, I guess you could say 3-step depending on how you're considering it, but did a multi-step correction, had to do multiple sets of passes on that. Off camera, I did the roof and I've done the pillars. So I've done the whole roof section. That took a lot. It took me a solid 3-4 hours to get through, and now I'm finding frickin' scratches whenever I look. I think that just happened because that certainly wasn't there when I was polishing. I'll also show you what I worked on the trim. The front bumper trim looks amazing, so I restored that, and I've just been kind of working through each section of the car. The thing that's been really, really important on this purple paint, it's easy to miss things, is the big scan grip here. So I've really needed this thing for this application because this purple is kind of hard to see some scratches. When you see them, it's like glaring, but I've really needed this light in order to aid me in seeing. There's a lot of scratching around the edges, which has been quite a bit of work to get kind of ironed out. You have to draw the line somewhere, so just like anytime you're polishing, you can't just keep polishing forever. I have to draw the line, but I don't want to leave anything major. Like there's one scratch up here on the roof in the middle that I attacked about as much as I'm willing to attack. There's another little scratch here. I'm not going to chase those anymore. But this one, I might have just installed with the darn towel, so I'm going to check my towel. And then this pillar needs a combination of the 3-inch and 1-inch. And I'm continuing to use Cut Max, which is what I've been using on this whole process. Let me just hit this scratch. Now I haven't done any finish polishing on the roof, just compounding. This is one of those cars that if you keep looking, you're going to keep finding. I mean, a lot of this is original paint from 1996. And a lot of people love this thing, so this car has been loved on quite a bit. So you do have to kind of draw a line. At some point, you have to stop polishing, I think. So that looks pretty good. So let's do this section here. The key with 1-inch pads, they tend to get loaded up pretty quickly. So you've got to keep blowing it out. And this is dual action. So this is the Nano long neck. And this is the dual action machine, or dual action backing plate. Not the rotary. Rotary gets less aggressive as you go smaller. Dual action gets more aggressive as you go smaller, so keep that in mind, that I'm actually more aggressive here with this little baby pad on dual action on the random orbital backing plate than I am with the 5-inch or 3-inch. I got to get that flex tool. I saw Corey, Car Pro Sky's the Limit, had the they had the little tool, little extension tool thing. I need to get that, so you can get into these areas behind door handles and things like that. All right, so from my vantage point, this all looks pretty good. Now, if I get the lights, I could probably keep chasing, but I think I'm going to call it polished. There's not a ton of paint here, so a single set of passes seems to be sufficient. So I'm gonna do my 3-inch, let me blow this out. So this setup here, if you're wondering, so this is a Prevost fluid swiveling coupler. Euro high flow is the size. And then I've got a Euro high flow here. I've put a little drop of oil in here so that I have some oil in my tool. This is an LHR 75 pneumatic. You've got to get a lot of equipment in order to make this thing work. So it's probably not worth it unless you're a professional or you just like to have everything. So fluid swiveling coupler into this is my the Obsessed Garage version of a Continental hose. This is a Continental F5 hose. And then we'll show you the compressor in a little bit. But I've got a pretty beefy silent piston compressor. It's right now, you know, you can hear me talking. If we had a regular piston, it'd be quite a bit louder. But this is a silent piston, so it has a silencing shroud on it. And from our last video, I put some extra jack point spacers so I have enough room to get in here and polish the bottom when we get to that. Get this section here, and then we'll start working on the door. See how we're looking. So these are the higher pile. These are 350 GSM towels from the rag company. I like these for polish removal on harder paints that tend to scratch a little easier. I know that may not make logical sense, but the harder the paint is, oftentimes the easier it is to scratch, but the harder it is to remove the scratch. I think this is kind of an important spot where you can really see it. I'm going to do another set of passes on this section here. Just like the rest of the car, I found even more on the original paint. So the roof is original, this is original, this has been repainted. So this whole section here up to this area. So this has been repainted and blended, and so as you see we'll show you this. Kind of zoom in on that and show you what a pigtail looks like, and that's from machine polishing after painting. But there's tons and tons and tons of paint on here. What was it, 350 microns, something like that, up to 400. All right, so let's get you this spot here. Let's see if we can get this, and we'll tackle this. So my spot is right here. So the spot, no, I can't see it. So right here, right to the left of this towel, is it looks like a curly Q. So in order to get that pigtail out, I've got to remove paint. So I got to remove enough clear coat to get down to the same level as that pigtail. Now how that pigtail happens is, like if you look at a backing plate, so these circles are for cooling. Now if you take a sanding pad on a machine on a random orbital, now you could sand with this, but you really wouldn't want to. This has a 15mm orbit, so the size of the orbit is pretty significant. So normally a sander would be 3, 6, or 9mm. But what happens is, if this happens rather quickly especially if you're removing some material. So Jose paints the car. He painted this section, he puts a bunch of clear coat on, and then he has to go and fix like little nibs and issues, and so he's going to remove a bunch of material to sort of flatten out the paint. And he's trying to flatten it out just enough so that it somewhat matches the texture of the original factory orange peel. But when he's running that sander, what happens is dirt, or I guess not dirt, but material from the clear coat gets clogged up in the cooling sections on or even just on any section. The sanding pad gets loaded up, And then what happens is, generally these little cooling sections, when they get loaded up, it leaves that little squiggle mark, that little pigtail. There's really not, I mean, the way to avoid it is to constantly be blowing off the pad and removing the clear material, clear coat off of the pad. But it's, you know, it's one of those things, it's difficult to do. Much more difficult than dealing with a VA like this and a pad that isn't removing, like this isn't removing nearly as much material as a, you know, as a sanding pad would. So now in order to get that out, I'm using a, you know, a compound, a heavy compound, reasonably heavy, and I'm still using a random orbit. So I'm using this 15mm random orbit, but I've got to work at it a bit to get it out. And these are things that once you see, it's super visible, but on this purple paint, it's kind of hard to see at times. So now what I'm going to do is get it out. It's bad enough that I keep losing it. I'm going to have to polish this whole fender, but let's just attack this spot and see how many. Pretty fascinating how much tick marking, how much microfiber marring I get from this pad, which is pretty rare. I don't normally see it that much, but on this paint system, it sure is clouding up and marring up the surface. Yeah, so that took the pigtail out. Normally it's not that easy. Normally it would take 3 or 4 sets of passes to get that out. So what I'm gonna do, got this. So let me open the trunk. Yeah. I'm going to tape the tail light here, and I'm going to treat this section. And I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to go this way. Get this way on the door. Just because I hate doing doors, and I'm kind of coming down here. I'm just going to stay organized on this. So I think I want to go, so I'm going to do 3-inch here, and then I'm going to go to 5-inch, I think, and do the bigger pad across the car here. This guy out a little more. I'm going to polish the taillight anyway, and all the rubber here is pretty recessed, so that's why I didn't tape it. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, I think I'm going to do better with the bigger polisher here. Let's do that. Set this aside. Since we're doing so much with the air, let me just show you the air setup here. I know I talked about this before, but you may be new here. We just finished the Krenzla, so I got some drywall dust over here, but you'll get the gist of it. So this is a 60-gallon, and I started debadging and I gave up. I got to finish the debadging. So this is what's called a silent piston compressor. So this is a low RPM, so it operates at about 600 RPM, whereas like a Husky or an inexpensive, like a big box store level Quincy or something like that, not the higher end Quincy, but some of the lesser expensive stuff, they tend to operate at 2,500, 3,500 RPMs. If you have a cheap pump or cheap compressor, they'll operate on much higher, 1,000, let's just say 1,000 plus, 1,500 RPM plus. And that's what creates a lot of the noise. And so the way that they help silence this, so this one operates, it's right around just shy of 70 decibels. So it's somewhere around 65 to 70 decibels at 10 feet. So this is a big insulated shroud that goes around it. So the first thing they do is slow it down. So it's a 2-stage, it's oil, well, not oil cooled, but there's a oil type piston compressor that you need to service it a bit. I've got 21 hours on my machine, so I won't have to do service for a while. So maybe once a year I should change the oil. But this section here is the silent piston. So it's as silent can be. It operates up to 150 psi. It's a two-stage type compressor. So they lower the RPMs, put the shroud on it, and that's how you get rid of a lot of the noise. And then you have this 60-gallon horizontal tank as well. And then this I opted for the dryer. So this has a refrigerated dryer here, not a desiccant dryer, but a refrigerated dryer. In order to make this work, you have to kind of warm it up, if you will, or cool it down. And so this is creating, I don't have a lot of air in here because we have a supplemental dehumidifier, plus I've got a mini split and a regular central air system in this garage, so humidity is not a huge concern. But this will dry the air, helps with pads and helps with my tools by drying it. But this is something you have to physically come, turn it on, and kind of prepare for it. It doesn't sense anything. And then from here, it goes out of here into my filtration system, the micro air system. So this will filter all the way down to, so filters any oil or dust or particulates, also water. So this will filter it down to 0.003 parts per million. And so we're pulling out pretty much all the gunk, if there was any, totally unnecessary, but it does make a bit of a difference, I think. If you had an old compressor or something funky, in my case, I've got this really great system, and I feel like if I keep it great, I keep it nice and clean and operating properly, that I will never need anything extra. This is a real luxury, not necessary. But we also have the regulator here, is where I'm operating at 93 psi, so that way I'm getting roughly 90 psi at my tool. Normally, if I was just blowing out pads and I wasn't using my pneumatic tool, I would bump it up to 150 psi. I can blow out pads even more efficiently. And then we have our 1-inch Prevost lines, which is plumbed throughout. And then that's going to the hose reels that I showed you earlier. Cox Easy Coil Reel, where we sell all this stuff, can design all this stuff for you. This is kind of what you need in order to do pneumatic polishing. So unless you just have a really nice garage, this also feeds my mounting balancing machine, feeds any kind of air tools if I were to use any, which I really don't. I use pretty much all electric. So certainly overkill. I think this compressor is about 5,500. This is another 12 or 1,300. I probably have another $2,000, maybe $3,000 worth of piping and hose reels. So you're $10,000 to $15,000 system just to use a $100 or $260 pneumatic polisher is kind of stupid. But since I have it, it is a nice luxury to have, and then you can do all kinds of stuff with this. Fill in tires, using mounting balancing. If you're a professional detailer, or you just have, you have a really, really nice garage, I think this is something you still want. You still want a nice compressor. The other one you've seen me do is the screw version. That's what I have in the Helen house. That's what I had at my, that's what I had in here before. This one delivers about 23 CFM. The other one only delivers about 13, 14. So this is quite a bit louder than the rotary screw version, but it is more stout. And I had brought this in here to do some dry ice stuff. This is really not enough to do dry ice properly. You want it 7.5 or 10 horse, to be able to do that. So something to consider. It costs a couple of grand to increase the output. But that's what I'm using here to run this, and then I'm blowing out my pads with a simple Tornador. So I just walk out here, which is annoying, but I walk out here and then blow out pads, and you can see the little filament that creates a semi-random pattern on my swiveling coupler with the same hose. So I've got 2 hose reels in here. We decided not to do 4. I would prefer to have 4 at all, 1 on each corner of the car. But I'm doing 2 just simply because we didn't have any symmetry on the ceiling, and so I said, well, let's just try it with 2. In a perfect world, you would have 4 sets of hose reels and power cord reels, but it's still pretty darn good. So let's get our Milwaukee polisher going. I'm falling in love with this thing more and more every time I use it. It is really stinking good. Check my battery. I think I charged them all up. Yep. This is the 6.0 battery. 6.0 is the sort of the sweet spot in batteries from Milwaukee. The 8.0 is better because it's the same footprint, same weight, but has more capacity. The problem is the 8.0s are only sold in singles, and they don't come with tools. So 6.0s come with tools as part of the kits and packages, and also 6.0s come in a 2-pack, which saves like $100. So, you know, an 8.0, you're paying such a huge premium for the 8.0 over the 6.0 batteries. So I think 6.0 is the sweet spot in the high output batteries. So this has the 21, whatever, it's the 21 millimeter, the bigger lithium ions in the high output stuff. And it works better in conjunction with the supercharger that they do. Charges faster and a little more capacity. So I don't see a ton on this fender, other than just some basic, a lot of stuff from wiping, dry wiping. Let's do the top first. In case you're wondering, I found that 4,400 RPM seems to be what I've been preferring on the Milwaukee. The thing I like so much about this cordless business is, you know, I like to walk out there and blow out the pad, and I don't have to unplug or unhook anything. It's great. I need to make a couple calls here.
How you doing today?
Still polishing away here, right where you left me a couple days later.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, well, I want it to be done.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, so this section here is kind of tricky because of the rear bumper cover. So I'm going to rotary up to the edge here because all of these edges are all janked. So I'm going to just rotary this. Like a giant mess. This Cutmax isn't a very good rotary type polish. Gonna make the mess. See, this is the kind of stuff that we talked about this a lot early on, that if you're a professional detailer, you can't really do this kind of stuff, this level of stuff. You know, you got to just polish with the 5-inch as much as you can, grab the 3-inch out and just kind of hit the edges. But to like spend 2-3 hours on a panel like this, I mean, although you'd love to do that, you just can't really do it. And so this is one of those arguments for, you know, if you have a car like this that you love. The problem is, you know, I'm not a professional, but I'm pretty darn decent at this, as you can tell. And I've spent, I don't know, certainly hasn't been 10,000 hours like a professional would, but it's been a lot of hours. Hundreds, if not in the thousands of hours of doing, certainly in the high hundreds, if not into the thousands of hours on polishing and spending time kind of working through this stuff. And I find that one of the things that I don't have as much, I don't have quite the eye that like my friend Billy would have, or, you know, some people who do this for a living all the time. So it takes me a little longer to see things, or oftentimes I won't see it. Part of it is I don't want to see it. You know, I want to get the job where it looks good. And so I tend to go and err on the side of, let me just get it pretty darn good. And if I have to like micromanage every square inch of it, that, am I really going to do that when I'm washing the car or taking care of the car? So I don't tend to like see every imperfection as quickly as maybe you would if you had more time on the machine. Now, the disadvantage of doing that rotary, like right here, is a bit of hologramming. So I'm going to go back over this section again, but I did want to get that out because I was having a hard time getting up to this edge with the bumper cover here being in the way. And by the way, notice I was using wool, not microfiber on the rotary. The perfect finish probably would have taken out that hologramming, but I wanted to just have a nice even looking finish. Shoot, I should have taped that. I'm gonna end up polishing the taillights anyway, so. Looks pretty good. Now, let's work this section here. I think I might want to rotary that first. Missing a little coverage. This trim, I spent so much time and money to get right, so I don't want to. This trim here turned this car into a whole nother level of project, having to have the whole thing half painted. So I don't want to mess this up, so I'm going to make sure I get good tape coverage on here. Yeah, I cut it a little short there. Rather have my tape a little long over the edge than short over it. Yeah, we're going to need a rotary in here because there's lots of sanding. Okay, that looks pretty good. So on this edge. This is not a good rotary polish. It's too thin. But I don't know. McGuire stopped making the M101. Now let's see what that looks like. Let's see if it made a improvement. Little tip, look at what way the edge of the tape is and try to wipe in that direction so I don't grab the tape and pull it off. Oh yeah. I think I need a little more. I'm going to do another pass. Some deeper scratches here. Made a huge improvement though. Always good practice to shake up your polish periodically. Don't go crazy with the rotary. This light is so good. I don't have to get anything else out. I can see everything right from that light. There's a big old scratch there, but I don't think that one's going to come out. But I got all the nasty sanding up to that edge there. So that looks pretty darn good. There's just one right here. I'm going to try just one more set of passes. Let me just try the dual action on that little nick there. Where is it? No, it's two. It's like a little dimpled scratch. Certainly looks better, but it's not going to come out. I don't want to hammer on it too much. Pretty good. Just got my microfiber hazing that we showed you in episode 1. If you haven't seen episode 1, we go check that out. I also didn't mention, I guess I'm polishing this for me, but I'm really polishing this for the next guy, and that we're doing a giveaway on this thing, so. It's gonna slay, Mike. Gotta do it for the people. Gotta do it for the views. I gotta do it for the 997 RS is what I gotta do it for. And just think about, I could have this or a 997 RS. No question. This is fun though, man. I should get all my cars repainted. This paint is so much better than factory. Although, you know, the factory, I hammered down on that pretty good too, and it seems pretty stout, and it's correcting. Come out to here, blow this out. And you have the luxury here opening the door to get it out of the way, which is going to mess up our video here, but wait till you see our vacuum solutions, our prototype vacuum solutions are coming. Just wait till you see how good they are. I just know it. I haven't even seen it yet. Wow, this is pretty jacked right here. Right here. All that. What the? Let's see if we got it in one pass. It is nice knowing the history of the paint though, and knowing right here what I got. And I got lots of clear to work with. Yep. Got all the pigtails out. I mean, I could refine it a little bit more, but Perfect Finish is going to do most of that. Let's see what this looks like here. So I haven't done this section yet. Dang. Oh, okay. Yeah, all kinds of sanding here, so I need to really refine this. I think we're good with the 5-inch here. Yeah. I'm also doing a lot more overlapping than normally. Like, I've already polished this a couple of times, but I keep seeing additional little scratches and things. So I've just overlapped quite a bit more, you know, went up onto here. Yeah. The other thing I have a tendency to do is I like to finish. So like I finished the front clip, so I did the full polishing on the front clip. It's a lot easier to delineate the front clip and then from the roof, transition down the fenders and the door. So I tend to compound the rest of the car, and I'll finish this all at once at the end. Okay, remarkable difference. And a lot of this, some of this is sanding, but some of it is from washing the car without having any kind of protection on it. So some of these are just toweling, wiping marks from me washing the thing without having any coating or anything on it, wax. So this is what I just did here. And then you see all these, so you see like bigger swirl marks from toweling, from wiping. And then some of these little pigtails are from, so right around this line here, you see more scratches than there. Now, we showed you this yesterday. You can see this sort of imperfection. You can basically just see the microfiber in the paint that'll refine out when we do the finishing. I've yet to have a car that was there was that much refinement difference between, I think it's probably some of the hardness of the paint, but there's a huge refinement in finishing a lot of times. It also is because it's a darker color, but a lot of times I find a hard time even seeing anything when I'm doing a finishing. Let me just push this thing all the way out here, out of the way. It's better to just leave it here. I'm telling you people, this frickin' Milwaukee is great. Once you get over the vibration in your hand, there's quite a bit more transfer in your hand than the Rupes does, but it's good, man. It's 90% of the way there, so I'm inclined to go cordless. I don't have to deal with all the weirdness of the cord and dealing with all that. Yeah, this needs to be done again. I didn't work that quite as long. So another set of passes will help that out. Just push this out of the way for the moment. I'm gonna do the same thing I just did. Yeah, I mean, if I tried to lay into the flex like I just laid into this thing, I mean, just applying tons of pressure, it would not do that. It would just stop spinning. Okay, so I think I'm beating a dead horse here. So I think what we'll do, I think we'll wrap this for today because there's going to be a lot of the same. When I do the trim back here, I'll show you what I did to restore it. It's already pretty good from the dry ice cleaning, but I'll show you what I did to that with solution finish, and then we'll coat this at the end. But we'll do that on episode 3. So I'm going to finish this side of the car. Maybe episode 4, we'll probably do the trunk and the rear spoiler area and deal with that. The one thing kind of stinks is the spoiler's on there, and we're not going to be able to get underneath it. And I don't think it's super easy to take that thing off. We'll take a look at that. But I'm going to keep polishing away. We'll finish this fender. I'll save the finishing for, we'll finish the whole car together in probably episode 5 or 6. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, thanks for spending some time with me here polishing. What I'm really getting in is I'm going to quit. And keep refining, keep working on the door and the lower rocker here. Get rid of all this weird kind of body solvent sheen thing we got going on there, and just keep fighting for this car, getting it dialed in. It's going to look awesome when it's coated. Windows are getting tinted as well, and I don't think I'm doing a radar detector in this car because it's kind of hard to. They don't make a blend mount for it, so I'm not sure. I'm even worried about doing a radar detector in it, but we'll do the exhaust as well at some point in this series. So thanks for watching. See you on the next episode.